All right, today my name is Michael Hensley. I'm going to be sharing with you the 18 a day. So, again, I'm going to be informing you about the invisible wounds of war. Not all wounds are visible, and today you'll see what I'm talking about. So who am I? I'm a combat veteran. I served in the Army for almost 4 years before I was medically discharged. For the past 6 years, I've had post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and herniated discs in my back and my neck. Recently, I became a volunteer veterans advocate, giving speeches on PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries, putting a face and a voice to other disabled veterans. So what is post-traumatic stress disorder? Post-traumatic stress disorder is not something that's new. It's been around for a long time. It's not new with the current conflicts that we're facing today. Some other names post-traumatic stress disorder has been called. During the Civil War, it was known as the soldier's heart. In World War I and World War II, it was known as shell shock or battle fatigue. After the Vietnam War ended, the term post-traumatic stress disorder was brought about. Post-traumatic stress disorder is also known as PTSD, which is its more common name. As described by the National Center for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder is an anxiety disorder that can occur after you've been through a traumatic event. A traumatic event is something so horrible and scary that you thought your life was going to die, or your end, or others around you were going to die. You may feel afraid that you have no control over what is happening. Anyone who has gone through a life-threatening event can develop PTSD. One very important thing to remember is that PTSD is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Some of you in this very room could have suffered from PTSD or do have PTSD. Some of the ways as a civilian you can get PTSD, how many of you have ever been in a motor vehicle accident? By show of hands. So 4 or 5 of you. Were you ever scared to get back in the car? Maybe a little nervous, apprehensive to get back in? Natural disasters, tornadoes, when it rains. I know a lot of people in Texas start to get a little scared with the rain. Robbery, fires, anything where you thought that your life was going to end and you changed the way you went about your day-to-day life, you could have had post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I want to warn everyone, this video could be a little graphic. Video didn't work.
Oh, is that on YouTube?
MySpace video, but it's fine.
Okay.
Now, there's another invisible wound of war. It's also known as a traumatic brain injury. A traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is described by the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke as a form of acquired brain injury. It occurs when a sudden trauma causes damage to the brain. TBI can result when the head suddenly and violently hits an object, or when an object pierces the skull and enters the brain tissue. Not all TBIs occur when your head hits something. How many of you have had a concussion? By show of hands. One. Concussions take a while to recover from, 6 to 8 months generally, maybe a year or two. I know personally I've had 6 concussions in one day. From the number of explosions that my vehicle's gone through.
Wow.
These concussions, in turn into a traumatic brain injury and can leave you debilitated. TBI is not just found within the military services. Again, everyone here is susceptible to a traumatic brain injury. Like I said, a concussion, you could get hit in the head, and even if you fall. An improvised explosive device, or an IED, is the #1 casualty creator in Iraq and Afghanistan today. TBIs and IEDs are responsible for 55% of all casualties in the wars today. 30% in combat for 4 months or longer have suffered at least a mild TBI from an IED blast wave. There's over 300,000 cases of diagnosed concussions from roadside bombs. Now, this is one IED. And would you think that something so small as maybe a trash can can do something like that? When you see the raw power and devastation from one of these, it's pretty scary. Now, one of the hardest things to admit as a soldier is there's something wrong. That PTSD has to be something you're willing to accept, and as a person that you have it. So I'm going to read to you a quote from the Army Soldier's Creed. And it reads, "I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills. I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself. I am an expert and I am a professional. I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America in close combat." Now this is something that from day one when you enter the military service, you will repeat this creed. You will have it ingrained into your brain. So to think that it's okay to be less than combat ready it's kind of hard. So here we have a soldier. Some of the things that we come back and we're facing today, there's been over 2.2 million have served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Over 500,000 are suffering with major depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, or traumatic brain injury, or even all three. There's been 300,000 cases of depression. 1 in 6 veterans returned with post-traumatic stress disorder. That leaves 500,000 cases of PTSD. 420,000 traumatic brain injuries, or 200,000 with all three. When you add all these up, you get a staggering 1.9 million cases of some sort of invisible wound of war. That leaves us with veteran suicide. We have 18 a day. 18 veterans a day take their own lives. That leaves, there are over 950 suicide attempts a month, with 11% successful. 6,570 vets take their own life a year. As of 2010, there were 4,474 casualties in the Iraq War. That's in 7 years. So, as a soldier, you're 102% more likely to take your own life coming back to the States than you are to die in Iraq. The veteran suicide rates are so high because the help is not there for us. The help is not what it should be. They're learning, it's getting better, but it's not there yet. So today we looked at post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and the significance behind 18 a day. Furthermore, I want to leave you with a quote from John F. Kennedy. And it reads, "A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers." Thank you.
Thank you.